Morning folks, back to the bike again. Foggy Sunday morning, out for a training ride. So I've been on commentary the last 10-15 minutes or so, just trying to reinforce the lessons I learned over the last 18-24 months. If you remember, some of you might have seen my Back to the Bike challenge in March. It was the final video I put out before I had my heart incident, and I challenged you to do half an hour's commentated riding on a regular basis. I don't know how many of you actually took up that challenge. A few of you publicly committed to it, but it's a good habit to get into. The aim is for not perfection, but to be the best you can be. So, a couple of objectives this morning, a little bit of training, but also thinking about the next stage in my motorcycling journey. And I think now I've made my mind up, I am going to sell the RT. I've actually advertised it on Motorcycle News. Take a look if you're interested. Contact me through my email, which is backtothebike@gmail.com. Had an interesting week, quite busy really. I'm back to work now, so great to be working again. Earning some money always helps, doesn't it? But also on Wednesday I was able to go to Motorcycle Live. Had a good walk around there, had a good chat with a few people. Spent a good hour or so on the Ducati stand actually, just exploring possibilities and trying to draw up a bit of a short list. So before I get to my short list, just let me explain my approach for changing a bike. So for those of you who followed my journey from the beginning, I followed a pretty structured process actually in terms of choosing a bike. And essentially it's all rooted in the requirement, and I think very often if you consider two aspects of choosing a machine. So one is your requirement, what job do you want the bike to do, and the second thing is the let's say the engineering solution or the specification that the motorcycle you choose is going to offer you, you know, including all the bells and whistles and gimmicks and gadgets and stuff that probably 98% of which you're never ever going to use. So I'm just trying to be really clear about what my requirement is at the moment. When I chose the RT, drop down, pick up. When I chose the RT, it was about coming back to the bike, it was about giving myself a challenge, so I recognised it wasn't the easiest bike in the world to learn on, but I have been able to do that. And it's a superb machine. It is a jack of all trades, is the RT, but it's a heavy bike. It's 265 kilos, and primarily it's designed for touring, isn't it? And I think I've just got to recognise now that what my riding has, Lifesaver, what my riding has I suppose evolved into is not so much the touring, but I'd probably suggest that 19 out of 20 rides, or maybe 9 out of 10 let's say, is just jumping on for an hour and a half, you know, probably a couple of times a week. Now probably 1 in 20 is going out a bit further, maybe half a day. And then the occasional ride, meeting up with my mate Dale, Seafly Fisher. We meet up down in Wiltshire for some training rides and a bit of banter. So that's essentially where I'm spending a day on the bike, or maybe I'm doing a riding through history bike ride or something like that. And now those aren't too often. And then something which I've never yet done is actually go away overnight, which I would like to do in the future. But the bottom line is I don't really need a tourer, and with the heart condition I don't really want to be lugging a 265 kilo bike around. By the way, as I always say, it weighs nothing. It's light as a feather when you're sort of doing anything above 3 miles an hour. Mirrors, away we go. But if I ever dropped it, I couldn't pick it up. With my heart condition now, it would basically kill me. And actually, I don't need all this touring capability. And the thing about the RT is it's a wonderful bike riding in the winter. You've got the heated seat, you've got the heated grips, you've got the fairing, which shields you really, really well. And that, added to a really good set of clothing, my Halverson's clothing. Take a look at the review if you're interested. Has been superb. The gloves and the boots as well are also reviewed on the channel. So I'm very well shielded from the elements. But it's 2 years now, and I just feel as though I've come to the end of something. And I think I'm looking for a new challenge, really. So I want a bike that does things a little bit differently. So back to the requirement then. I need a bike that is relatively multi-purpose, but actually with an onus on the kind of riding that I do, as I just described. So more optimised for that, really. But the second major requirement I already mentioned, I think, is the fact that I want to shed some weight. So I want to get from 265 kilos to nearer 200. Bike has to be reliable, has to have all the safety aids on. Got to be capable of going out for a day, or possibly an overnighter or two. And that leaves a pretty wide field, to be honest. But anyway, so that's the requirement. So I think I've narrowed it down to, I will consider the BMWs, the new sort of 1250 series, but again, all of those are quite heavy. They're all heavy bikes, and I know everyone says, oh, the BMWs, well, they carry the weight low, but you still have to lug it round, and there's a lot of inertia there. And cornering is fine on a BMW, but obviously not going to be as nimble as something like, say, a Multistrada or a Monster. So that's why I spent quite a bit of time on the Ducati stand. I did buy myself a new red Ducati, by the way. It was a t-shirt, size large. So I got my first Ducati. And I'm interested in the Monster. Again, discussing, I run everything past my biking dad, my biking mentor Dale, who knows more about this than I'll ever know, and he suggested it might be interesting for me to try a traditional motorcycle, i.e. a naked Italian sports bike. And of course with the Monster, you've probably seen some of the reviews in the motorcycling media. You can make of it what you will. You can put it in urban mode, you can put it in touring, you can put it in sports mode. But it's going to handle completely differently from this, and it would be a new challenge, and I think I need a new challenge. I'm a great one. I get sort of a bit bored when I get into what I call paint by numbers motorcycling, when I know what to do and how to do it. So I would like a challenge. So I'm considering the Monster. The other bike I'm also considering, which might be a bit of a halfway house, is the Ducati Multistrada. I'd be very interested to hear from those of you on the channel who have the Multistrada, either the 950 or the 1260, or the 1200 for that matter. I'll probably err towards the 950 if I bought one, and I'd probably buy a late model 2019. I'd probably do everything I would want to do. Certainly enough bike for me. Okay, drop down, pick up. So if I can, possibly next week, I'm actually going to test ride the Monster and the Multistrada back to back. Again, I've just absolutely saturated the videos and reviews and so forth, so I've really done my homework. The other BMW I just sort of put in, I just throw it into the mix just in case, would be the R1250 RS, which actually is probably 25, I think 30 kilos lighter than the RT, and is generally reckoned to be a sort of a sportier ride, but has some of the protections on. So I might well ride one of those as well. Now, just share with you, I've trained 25,000 people in advanced project management techniques over the last 20 years or so. I've heard from some of the sharpest minds in the world, and certainly in the UK. Been involved on some pretty serious projects, and if I just share with you what essentially project management boils down to, and a project is a chunk of change, and so for me my chunk of change is what bike am I going to ride next and how will I choose it? What will that bike be? What will it do? So we've talked about requirement. Okay, so requirement is essentially what I want the bike to do. The engineering solution is what the bike can do in terms of its engineering specifications, what it's made of, how heavy it is, and bells and whistles and so forth. So the first step really is not to get distracted by the specification, and I think many people buy a bike and then sell it PDQ because they didn't think enough about the requirement. They didn't think about what job do you actually want this bike to do. Okay, so let's just park that thought just for the time being. So the 4 steps of project management, which I will come back to, the 4 sort of fundamentals if you will. So number 1, what's your burning platform? So the burning platform essentially says, why is it I've actually got to change? Why is it I've got to do something different? So for me, it's a heart condition, primarily. But as well as that, I think it's also the challenge, that the fact that I just want a new challenge really. I want, in project management terms, I want a quest. I want to move away from paint by numbers. I want some new skills to learn. So that's my burning platform. So the next thing then is, in project management terms, step number 2 is what we call clear shared vision. So what's the vision? What is it you sort of see yourself wanting to do? So I've sort of already described that to you. And for me, it's thus I think I very much want to get into my cornering. Really want to master that. I know I'm not particularly strong at it. I've got the IM first, which essentially means I can ride safely. But I'd like to up my skills a little bit. And also the clear shared vision, I think, is for me is to get a bike that's significantly lighter. Something that has all the safety aids for me would be important as well. And it's got to be something that gives me a bit of a buzz, if you know. Put a smile on my face. And as well as that, the shared bit in the clear shared vision essentially means it's got to be affordable. So I've got to obviously agree this with Mrs. Back to the Bike, who's always been very supportive of my motorcycling. She's not a biker herself. She doesn't want to go on the back of the bike, but she knows I need a hobby. So the next stage then is what we call capacity to change. So capacity to change, the short form of that is, if you want to decorate a room, you first of all got to take the furniture out. These dreaded awful smart speed limits, don't they, in coning off areas. But for me, I think my capacity to change is about the fact that I need obviously to have the money on one side, and I've actually got time to make the decision. And then the final stage then, in any good project, is what we call actionable first steps. So the actionable first steps for me are doing the homework, doing the research, doing some test rides, and exploring the finance. So that's my basic approach. So I'll keep you posted. Like I say, if anyone's interested in buying the RT, you can obviously, probably better than any bike in the country, you can see the whole track record as to how it's been used and abused over the last 2 years. Bargain. Okay, so that's it. So leave those thoughts with you. I'd be curious about your approach to how you approach buying a new bike. I'd also be interested in your ideas as to what other things other bikes you think I might consider, or if people, one or two folks have already basically fed their ideas in. But apart from that, I'll speak to you on the channel. Thanks, by the way, for all your good wishes. It's been extremely heartwarming just to sort of see the level of support really offered through the channel, so thank you so much for that, and particularly to those of you who've been through a similar experience, because it does sound like one or two have been through a similar thing. And I think the fact is, you know, you can come back after a significant medical issue. You know, it's something to aim for, it's something to hope for, and I think without hope, where would we be? So, okay, back to the bike, signing off. It'd be great to hear from you in the comments, and I'll see you next time.